Hi everyone, this is a market recap for Tuesday, August 18th. Um, Bit of a gap down in the market today. Not really too keen on the recent price action that we've seen. It's made getting positioned into the market particularly difficult, at least for me. There's been a couple sectors that have trended nicely, and that's about it. And I said the other day that I thought several sectors were trending well or setting up well, and I still believe that. Um, but it's still made it very difficult to get positioned into a lot of those sectors. So, when the market turned up here, it was hard to get positioned because a lot of the stocks making participating in this move here were just straight up. There was no real entry. And then if you wanted to get positioned in this sideways period or on like a day like the 13th, a lot of these moves just reversed. So the market has been very, very choppy for me. It's been like borderline impossible to get positioned into new things, and yeah, pretty frustrating. Um, if we look at the EWY, right, this is kind of the gap down, or one of the main causes here. Memory names, STX, WDC, right, they're all kind of giving back their moves that they put in the last few days. Again, looking at a chart like SanDisk, looking at a chart like STX, do you really expect this thing to just go straight up? No. I mean, I personally would not. Um, and it's up 80% off lows, right? So it's put in a good move. There's no question about it. But it's when does this move end? Is the market just kind of bouncing? The market just kind of experiencing a relief bounce? That's possible. We did get the follow through day on the Qs still, and we are holding that level for now. But to me, the important thing is that we don't lose the 11th low, and it appears to me like we will. Um, we might have actually, yeah. So we're barely holding the 11th low, and to me, it looks like we're going to lose it. We've seen tons of rotation out of all sorts of sectors. If we look at the IGV, the software saw a big pick up in selling the last few days. And a lot of names kind of reacted to these. Okta, which I personally thought had a nice setup over here on the 13th, tried breaking out and it failed. I took a compass when trying to get positioned on the 11th. It looked like we were going to break out and then it failed, stopped me out. Um, Surprisingly, the one that gapped down on earnings looks fairly intriguing to me. I really like how Datadog looks. Um, you know, Unfortunately, I don't have super high conviction with current market conditions that this thing is just going to, go back to highs. But this is a pretty nice chart nonetheless. A lot of the hardware stocks like Dell. I mean, this thing. I tried trading it on the 4th. I tried trading it on the 7th, and now I tried trading it on the 11th. And it's like it finally looks like it's gonna go, and then it stops you out. Similar deal with HPE. This is at least put in a little bit of distance since its breakout, but just choppy, choppy, choppy. Really, really hard to get positioned into. Restaurants have been seeing a bit of a rotation out of it. No surprise there. I think this day here was a pretty obvious top, in my opinion, for many of these sort of restaurant names. Cracker Barrel sort of holding in there fairly well. Brinker International is still holding in there fairly well. But if we look at a BJ's or a Cake, um, it looks like we've probably put in a top here. So, bit of a rotation out of restaurants. Copper not really holding up particularly well, although it's certainly still in the base building phase. I wouldn't get too negative on it quite yet. However, copper is kind of part of this whole AI trade, and if the AI trade is sort of failing right now, then I would expect a continued rotation out of copper. Um, but copper not easy to get positioned into. Steel names have been weird. I kept thinking that these are going to bounce, and then they just don't. Right? I'm in an MT, and I bought this thing on the 30th, and I thought we were going to bounce on the 7th, and then I thought we were going to bounce on the the 13th, and then I thought we were going to bounce on the 17th, and then now we're just back at the 20 day. So I'd hope we eventually bounce, um, but lots of sideways, lots of kind of chop just across a lot of different things. I tried Ethereum. I think IBIT or Bitcoin looks pretty good the last couple of days. We're kind of in this zone still. We're back over the moving averages. I personally liked Ethereum better. I liked how the chart set up, but this thing has also been like very difficult, and there's certainly areas where I could have just traded this better. But I took it on the 11th. I bumped my stop to the lows of the 13th by the close of the 13th, and then I get barely stopped out on the 14th. Um, I add back on the 17th, and I'm using ETHU as my means of trading Ethereum, and I had set my stop loss like an idiot to the lows of the 17th as opposed to just either the highs of this day or the open of or the close of this day. And I get wicked out again, and then I add back again today. And then of course, if we're looking at Ethereum futures, at this point, I'm not even really particularly bullish on it. I still think it looks really good, but we shouldn't really be stalling at this point. I mean, I really don't want to see us go lower than where we're at right now. Like if we want to put in an inside day, fine, and break out, but like this is getting a little choppy at this point. We should have broken out on this day here. I don't really like the fact that we're stalling. So I got stopped out of Ethereum twice. I got stopped out of Compass. Um, Again, I don't know if I mentioned it. I mean, this is probably the most irritating trade or stock that I've traded in a while. I take this thing twice on the 10th. I get stopped out both times, just for it to rip to 40% for my entry right afterward. The only good stock, like putting in distance for my entry, and of course it stops me out twice on the breakout day. Again, Dell just chopping around. The one saving grace, in my opinion, well, there's a few. There's healthcare. Lilly had an awesome day today. XLV as a whole had an awesome day today. The XLF still looks really good. I think several banks, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, I think JP Morgan looks really good. They're all like basing reasonably well. Morgan Stanley looks really good. Um, and financials as a whole look pretty solid. And then of course, the market leader right now would be energy names like oil. MPC looks really good. And if we just look at the XLE as a whole, we're kind of right into this left side, high here. We did get over that level today, and we are gapping higher overnight for now. Not too sure what to make of this. This is kind of an interesting one because there are a few oil names that look really good. I think DK looks really, really good. And I also think that UGP looks really good. But again, it's like, are these even tradable setups when you have the XLE, up like this? I don't know. I'm not super sure, but certainly at this point, wish that I was in oil. I had taken a dyno back on the 8th, and then I sold the rest of my position here as we made new lows on the 5th, thinking that it kind of looked bad. And I'm glad I did, but the energy names are still going. So energy is kind of your leader right now. We're seeing heavy rotation out of the AI kind of tech trade. The photonic stocks had a major false breakout. I thought photo ETF looked really good yesterday, but failed breakout, big gap down. AOY and AXTI and CN, like all of these, they just don't look particularly good. And same goes for like DRAM, STX kind of getting back its move. Um, and I didn't. I liked the setup. However, I didn't like this straight up move from here. I would have liked an inside day before going, which is why I didn't trade it. NBIS selling, although this still isn't doing anything wrong. I think this needs time to build out a base. CoreWeave had a huge red day today. Um, CBRS, a big red day today. This is still well within structure again, but um, just not looking particularly good. SpaceX is flagging nicely under this level. Although I have to say, even if we flag under this, I could see this being just a sweep and then a continuation lower. I'm not going to lie. There were some potential short opportunities yesterday, particularly in stocks like STX or SNDK or the DRAM ETF as a whole, or the SMH, right? Right kind of into these areas. You had some low risk entries. Um, and again, I'm just not really, I don't really trade to the short side much unless I see something I really, really, really like. But they were there if you were watching them. Gold still kind of in its consolidation phase. Nice pullback into the 10 here on gold futures. To me, this is totally reasonable, and I'd expect some potential continuation on gold, honestly. But gold looks okay, and yeah, I mean that's about it. Again, just like very very choppy for me personally. Uh, Everything is just kind of not really trending particularly well aside from the energy space. Um, Aside from a few of the banks that I think are setting up decent bases, um, and Lilly and Datadog, I'm not really looking at much. I'd say these are three stocks kind of on my watch list. Datadog specifically, although I really like how this chart looks, but I have a sneaking suspicion we're gonna just wick. We're gonna break out and then just wick below this level. That's just kind of my feeling, but could be wrong. Hope I'm wrong. And yeah, I mean, I would like to get. I'm certainly over trading in this market. Um, I guess it was just hard to find. I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to stay pretty diversified in what exactly that I'm buying into. But it's not easy to get positioned by any means. Um, Biotechs have been looking okay. If we look at the XBI, is trending fairly nicely. Some biotech stocks look pretty good. Um, right? They're having decent continuation for the most part. Uh, these are just various biotechs that are all trending fairly well. There's one that I still think has a really clean base to it. Again, just way too thin for me. If I can find it, this stock right here, AVTX, happens to have a really, really nice chart. But again, very thin. I did trade, $20 million of volume today, but still just a little too thin for my preference. Um, but yeah, um, aside from that, I mean, that's all I got. I mean, again, just not really anything looking good to me. Um, Infuriating markets, very, very difficult to get positioned. I'm sure I sound like a broken record at this point, uh, but what do we see in the market from here? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we have some more continuation to the downside at this point. I'm just not seeing the green flags that I would have liked to see in that would make me feel bullish in this environment. If we look at all of the mag stocks, they're all just kind of trading poorly, um, and these were our leaders for a little bit, and then they're sort of just failing. So that's it. I'm sure there's a couple things I'm missing, some important sectors, but for now, not really looking to buy into anything. I'd just like to get one or two new positions added to my portfolio, or not added per se, but I'd like to see one or two stocks at least put in a clean trend. I don't really care how long it is off of my entry instead of getting chopped out for the billionth time. Um, But we'll see what Lily does. We'll see what Ethereum does. Not super confident in Ethereum. Um, and I'm sold out of Compass anyway. And then MT, I would like to see us bounce here. Brinker International not doing anything wrong, and then Dell. This has just been a choppy nightmare to trade. Earnings are on the first next month. Maybe this thing will get going on by then. Hopefully, otherwise I'll just sell it if it doesn't stop me out before then. So that's all I got. Thank you for listening, and see you tomorrow.